This morning, Dallas is tapping the brakes on high-speed rail connecting it to Fort Worth. And how much will property taxes increase to pay for police and fire pension? We will ask Dallas Mayor Pro Tem Tennell Atkins. Political drama coming in the Texas House after Republican demands of their next speaker. Are Democrats even going to get a say in who that person is? Caucus Chair Trey Martinez Fischer takes our questions. The Republican Party of Texas platform wants the state to take over the entire city of Austin. Could that actually happen? And far-right politicians won big in Europe this month. Many are pro-Russia and against Ukraine. Congressman McCaul chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee and tells us what that might mean to our own security.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Jason Whiteley. Some interesting political headlines to start the program with here. In a rare move, Republicans in the Texas House of Representatives censured four of their own, formally criticizing them for campaigning against fellow incumbents in last month's runoff election. 6 House Republicans lost the re-election races, as you likely know, mainly over school vouchers. So House Republicans censured Brian Harrison, Nate Schatzline, Tony Tinderholt, and Steve Toth. The censure just further illustrates the turmoil right now among Texas Republicans. Kyle Rittenhouse is going to work in Weatherford. The nonprofit called Texas Gun Rights hired him as its outreach director. Rittenhouse, of course, is the young man who was acquitted for killing 2 men in Wisconsin during a protest against police brutality rally 4 years ago. Now, as outreach director for Texas Gun Rights, Rittenhouse will organize events, speak publicly, and the group said he will campaign for a stronger pro-gun culture in Texas. And the Texas Agriculture Commissioner, Sid Miller, has just launched his own line of merchandise. On his website, Commissioner Miller now selling crop top hoodies and t-shirts for women with a number of phrases on them, along with wine tumblers, pint glasses, and men's clothes. Hats embroidered with Make Texas Agriculture Great Again are also for sale, the idea apparently borrowed from Trump himself. Let's start this morning, though, with a simmering political battle in the Texas House of Representatives. Will Texas Democrats get a say in who the next speaker is? State Rep Trey Martinez Fischer represents San Antonio, and he also leads the House Democratic Caucus. Mr. Chairman, welcome back to the program here. Republicans insist the next Speaker of the Texas House needs to eliminate Democratic committee chairs. We've heard this before, and Dade Phelan reduced the number 2 years ago, but 46 House Republicans now say they are on board with this. I'm curious if Democrats are going to have a say at all in who becomes the next speaker.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, my colleagues need to go back and check their history books. And since the days of Sam Houston, both parties are always represented in leadership in the Texas House. It's the people's house. It's a chamber that belongs to the people. And look, I get all the political talking points. This is coming down to governing. You want the best minds at the table. You want to have practical solutions to complex problems. And frankly, you want the House to be independent and not be beholden to extreme interest or a radical lieutenant governor or some West Texas billionaire because they want things a certain way. It just doesn't work like that.
Does Dade Phelan get reelected as Speaker?
You know what? I think that's up to Dade. I mean, he is running for Speaker of the House. He's done it before. I think he knows how to get there. I think the conventional wisdom is a speaker's race is a game of math. And so, as chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, I could give you 64 reasons why we will be relevant in this conversation. And frankly, we are there to serve. We're there to represent our constituents. We get elected the same way everyone else does. And we believe we deserve a seat at the leadership table.
2 years ago, Speaker Dade Phelan reduced the number of Democrats chairing committees. Do you think come January, when the legislature reconvenes, there'll be any Democrats at all chairing committees?
I'm very hopeful of that. I don't see any reason why that should change. And again, I mean, there's at least today, there are 64 reasons why I believe very strongly that we'll have Democratic chairs. And who knows, by November, we might have 67, 68, 69 reasons as to why Democrats should be part of the leadership.
Republicans now have enough votes as it stands today in the Texas House to get school vouchers passed. Do you expect that's going to happen next session?
I'm not so sure if the math is accurate on that. I mean, here's what I'll say. Republicans have been running voucher scams since 1957. Nothing has ever changed. Democrats
1957?
since the 1957s and the days, and maybe these could have been, Democrats that now identify as Republicans, but since the days of the integration of schools, when schools were no longer allowed to desegregate, you saw the first proposals to take public school dollars and apply them to private schools. San Antonio's own Henry B. Gonzalez in the state Senate filibustered one of the first proposals in 1957, and we've seen them time and time again. And one thing is never changed, that there's always been a coalition of Democrats and rural Republicans that believe in public education. And even though there were some elections this year that changed some of that math calculus, I still believe that there is enough votes, depending on a successful November, that we come back to defeat voucher scams once again.
You sound pretty optimistic. I mean, I wouldn't say you're ever pessimistic, but you sound really optimistic going into November here.
I think that every single day this state changes. It gets younger, it gets more diverse. The young adults matriculated in the voting age population, they may not know how they identify politically, but I know a few things. I know they're very empathetic and they care. I think they care about the environment. I think that they believe that you ought to love whoever you want to love. They believe the color of your skin should not dictate your success in life. And a lot of those values identify with the Democratic Party. And so I'm hopeful and optimistic in what's to come. But again, this is a very big state, 31 million people, 254 counties, 2 time zones. The Democratic Party didn't lose power overnight. We're not going to gain it back overnight, but we'll continue to pound that rock until we're successful.
Mr. Chairman, good to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring in the roundtable to talk about the politics of this. I am Mitra with the Texas Tribune in Austin is with us every week. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Ashley Godot, the political director at KVUE in Austin, also joining us this week. Bud, TMF is optimistic. Should he be?
I don't know if he should be, but let's spell it out. The Democrats think they can pick up 3 seats. If they can pick up 3 seats, they could probably stave off any voucher plan. They think they can pick up 2 seats in the San Antonio area, maybe 1 in suburban DFW somewhere, and that will make a difference to them. That'll also make a difference. If they can pick up 2 or 3 seats and get 10 Republicans to vote for them, the Democrats can choose Dade Phelan or any other Republican as Speaker.
And the key word there, I and if.
And that's going to frame some of the strategy going into how they kind of campaign on public education. And they're going to be looking at talking about funding and teacher retention and teacher shortages across districts. They're going to talk about schools closing in different districts. And if that's the argument that resonates, while more Republicans may be talking about curriculum aspects, the Democrats, for them, a winning argument will be trying to highlight kind of the aspects of how the funding debate went in the last legislation. That's going to be key for them.
But Ashley, at the end of the day, Beto O'Rourke said it, everyone says it from each party. Texas is a non-voting state. Republicans show up. Democrats just don't show up to the polls.
They don't. And I think when you listen to the representative talk, you have to remember he has to be positive, right? He has to look at things from the glass half full and see what things are positive and what things could be possible for the Democratic Party of Texas. But at the end of the day, Texas is red. Texas has been red. Texas is going to continue to be red after November. And I think that's just the reality that folks have got to deal with.
All right, a lot more ahead coming up, including this. When we come back this morning, new funding for the police and fire pension could mean cuts to city services in Dallas or higher property tax payments. Dallas Mayor Pro Tem Tennell Atkins is next. And a Texan in Congress knows the world's hotspots better than many folks do in D.C. Michael McCaul, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, on what you should be keeping an eye on when Inside Texas Politics returns. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. Our next guest has been around the world over the last 2 weeks, from Taiwan to Europe, and the future of democracy was the theme for both of those journeys. Congressman Michael McCaul represents parts of Central Texas. He also chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee in Washington, and we asked him about the delicate balance right now between tyranny and democracy. How concerned are you that tyranny could come back, that democracy is in jeopardy here at home and worldwide?
Well, Ronald Reagan talked a lot about freedom, democracy, human rights, how important it was for us to lead the free world. And NATO was a big part of that. And he was not an isolationist at all. And it seems like there is a return to some of this, but we can never be for dictators and tyranny. That violates, I think, the American dream and our value system of democracy that our founding fathers stood for. So I know there's, some people like to look at strongmen, but who are they? Putin, Chairman Xi, Ayatollah, Kim Jong-un. They were all tied together in this unholy alliance to defeat democracy. In fact, Chairman Xi told the president of Taiwan, democracy doesn't work. It's dysfunctional. I can make a decision and I can make it happen like that. The problem is you have to give up your freedom in exchange for a dictatorship.
And people watching this might say that, listen, Donald Trump said that he likes that quality in some of these leaders. What do you say to that?
I think, and we just saw him today. He envisions himself as a strong man who I think has this affection for strong leaders, but I would try not to misinterpret that for affection for dictators. He even talked about Putin at our conference today and how he told Putin that if you invade Ukraine, I'm going to hit you hard. And there was a lot of deterrence, under the Trump administration. He said the same thing to Chairman Xi about Taiwan and of course, supporting Israel. So, I know what you're talking about, but I hope people don't confuse it with supporting dictatorships.
There are lots of hot spots in the world today. I always appreciate talking to someone like you who has firsthand knowledge of what's happening on the ground in these places. Which ones should we be watching closely?
Well, I think long-term, the great power competition is with China. And it's on a lot of levels, advanced technologies, AI, warfare. We have a lot of export controls on my committee to stop selling them the technologies they use to build their war machine, like the hypersonic weapon. But what keeps me up at night, Jason, is I don't want to see another world war like my dad did. And we have two hot wars in a hot zone. One in the Middle East, one in Eastern Europe, and potentially a hot zone and a potential war in the Pacific. If the unholy alliance, comes together against the free West, we could see another scenario like my father's generation.
Mr. Chairman, always good to see you. I appreciate the insight.
Thanks, Jason.
Several big decisions coming up in the city of Dallas. The city is hitting the brakes on a high-speed rail line to Fort Worth. Plus, where will City Hall find the money to pay for police and fire pensions? And does Dallas's interim city manager have a shot at the permanent position? Questions we had for Tennell Atkins, the new mayor pro tem for the city of Dallas. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, congratulations on being reappointed by your council members to the number 2 job there. I want to ask you first about high-speed rail between Dallas and Fort Worth. We already have the Trinity Rail Express, the TRE line that's a 45 or 50-minute ride over there. It takes 40 minutes to drive by car. Do we really need high-speed rail between these two cities?
Right now, we are just pausing the break. We did a resolution, and the city council on yesterday said, let's pass the resolution. Pause the break, look at an economic study, the opportunity, pros and cons. So basically, that's what we're looking at. What is best for Dallas, not for Fort Worth, not for Arlington. What is best for Dallas, what is best for that taxpayer, and what is best for the development in Dallas.
When will that study be complete?
Right now, we're looking at to hire a consultant to put it out on the street, so sometime maybe the first part of next year.
Okay. Let's talk about the city staff recommending a plan for the police and fire pension. It's plagued the city for more than a decade since those bad investments a decade or so ago. But we're talking millions of dollars to address this here. The legislature still has to improve it. Tell me what's included in the plan.
Well, there are two plans. This said, you got an employee plan and you got the police fire plan, pension plan. But those plans is managed by two different systems. The employee plan, to get a state, by mandate, the state pension board said you have to have 100% funded in 30 years. The uniform is 39% funded. The employee is 7% funded. So therefore, they got to be in 30 years 100% funded. So right now,
that's challenging.
That's a big challenge. But all that funding is going to come from the taxpayer. So if you're going to reduce your property tax or your general fund, it's going to cost the taxpayer. Now the funds that we look at for the police and fire, by state law, House Bill 3158, it said we do not have to get a cost of living to that fund because they are not at 70%. Once they get 70%, then we can give them a cost of living. So the big debate right now, those retirees, you got 5,000 retirees, have not had a cost of living since 2017 when the state put that there. Just for imagine that you are a retiree in 2017, that you have $1 million in there. That $1 million spread over a 30-year amortization. Now, you can get that every month, a check the same month, but you can't draw your money out.
The cost of living's increased
a
lot since 2017.
A lot, but you still based on state law.
How much do you expect this to cost local taxpayers here in Dallas?
And what plan? Depending on what plan.
Either plan here. I mean, at the end of the day, taxpayers are going to be footing this, right?
That is correct. So the point is, if you do a 1% COLA, a cost of living based on the consumer index, based on a positive return on the dollar, let's say 1%. Yeah. And that 1% would cost you over 30 years, $133 million. You do 2% to give them a cost of living, that can cost you $266 million. But that money gonna come from the general fund. Right now, we are $38 million short in the general fund. And if you put 1% on there, it's gonna cost you another $13 million a year. Next year, it's gonna be 15, next year go up, and that's how you pay for it. But then too, the city manager and we as a policymaker got to decide, do we wanna cut library hours, rec center hours, don't fix the street, those things.
Let me ask you about the interim city manager, Kim Tolbert. Folks are telling me at City Hall that she's just hitting the ground running, making a lot of good changes, getting a lot of pats on the back and nods of approval down there. Do you expect she's going to eventually get the job?
You know, that's a difficult question to answer. I am the chair of the ad hoc committee administration. We're going to have a search. If she put her name in a hat, you know, we wait till that happens. But in the meantime, we look for all the best candidates in the world. We want a candidate who can come in running the ship. Does she got opportunity? Yes, she got a good opportunity, but right now, we look at all candidates.
When do you expect a decision?
Hopefully the first part of next year.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
The roundtable is standing by when we come back. All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ian, Bud, and Ashley all back with us here. Guys, let me ask you, Democrats perform better in some elections nationwide than they have recently, but worldwide, we're seeing some far-right parties do really well, especially in places like Europe. Is there anything, Bud, we should read into any of that about Democrats performing well or about what's happening in Europe?
Well, the main point about the fall elections is that we still see, all the polls are in the margin of error between Trump and Biden, but the polls in the swing states still favor Donald Trump. The big number for the fall election is that 80% of Republicans say they're definitely going to vote. 65% of Democrats say they're definitely going to vote. Until that enthusiasm gap is closed, the Democrats still will lag behind.
And that's a problem, Ian, for Democrats.
Absolutely, Bud nailed it on that. It really is like it seems like we're about 2,000 news cycles away from like when we're actually going to get to like the actual key things here. But like again, it comes down to excitement. You're going to have to keep an eye on the markets too, how people are feeling personally about their own economies, as well as just kind of what's going on too with the wars that we're seeing too. And so that's going to end up playing into kind of that voter enthusiasm.
Ashley, what do you make of that?
I want to be wrong, but I think voter apathy is going to be at an all-time high this November. I think there are a lot of people who aren't crazy about either of the choices, and I think there needs to be a big focus on independents. We really need to see who they're going to be supporting in November to really, I think, get a better idea of how things are going to shake out.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the independents are the ones who decide the election, not the Democrats or the Republicans. But let me ask you about something we did not discuss last week here on the program. The Republican Party of Texas, one of their platform additions was to take over the city of Austin, to start running the city of Austin, maybe like the D.C., District of Columbia there. Is that something that's likely down the road? Because a lot of platform issues have become reality.
I think, cities exist at the will of the legislature, and I think that people in Austin should be more aware of this than they seem to be, that the Republicans who are in the majority in Texas would like for the legislature and the state to take over the city and run the city. I think something else that's likely, though, Jason, is that the state threatens to move more state offices out of the city. They have to keep a certain amount of the capital in Austin, but they've already built a giant complex in Manor. They could move most of state government outside Austin.
That's actually stunning to think about. Is anyone talking about that yet, really, in Austin?
You know, I don't think you hear a lot of people in Austin talking about it because this is not the first time that we've heard this idea thrown out. We've seen bills filed on this before in the past in the Texas legislature. I think it is certainly interesting that for the party itself to make this a platform. But you really have to start to wonder, are we really talking about taking over cities? And that it's the Republican Party talking about taking over Austin? It's just really, I think a lot of people think of it as too unrealistic to pay attention to.
And she's right. The Republican Party, the party of small government, and wanting to take over Austin.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought too, and another thing that's kind of also gaining ground here in kind of conservative circles too is the aspect of countywide voting, and that's another thing that we're going to look at too, probably in the legislative session too, which is where there's a lot of conservative concerns around countywide voting. They refer to election security concerns about potential double, triple voting. Local officials don't see any evidence of that and say this is not a real concern. But the concern here among folks who are for countywide voting is that they're going to reduce access for folks and require more precincts and staffing that they don't have right now. So again, another thing to just continue to watch in this.
Yeah, and the countywide voting is an issue that that could turn into something come January when the legislature returns, Bud.
Well, that could backfire against Republicans too, because if the people who work in the central city and downtowns can't go vote at the courthouse, if they have to get all the way home to the northern Travis County or the tip of Bear County to vote, then they're not going to get there in time.
All right, good deal, guys. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics. Hope to see you there.